On the Bear Debate, we have 4 hot topics. Justin Fields. The numbers don't look good. Is he really a franchise quarterback? Kyler Gordon. Burnt in Green Bay. But when sifting through the ashes, was his performance really that bad? Roquan Smith. He expects to be the highest paid linebacker in the NFL. But is he anywhere near that good? Expectations. Where should Bears fans place their expectations for the 2022 season? Our debaters, Lester Wiltfong from the Windy City Gridiron and Jordan Silvera from the Barroom Network. Get ready to rumble. This is the Bear Debate. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of The Bear Debate. My name is Aldo Gandia, and I am really looking forward to today's debate show because we've got 2 guys here who I have a lot of respect for in their coverage of the Chicago Bears. Let's begin the introductions by bringing in Lester Wiltfong. Lester, let me hit this button here and bring you in. There you are. How are you, my friend?
Doing good, Aldo. How you been?
Great. Listen, before we get into the show, I want you to share with people a little bit about yourself. How long have you been at Windy City Gridiron, and what is your role there, and what else do you do besides editing articles and writing some things?
I've been at Windy City Gridiron, I think, 08, 09. I started doing stuff online about the Bears just for fun, like in 06, and I was back with the sporting news and just kind of, once I got into it, it was just a great creative outlet. I kind of stumbled across Windy City Gridiron, like I said, way back then, and just started off just writing in the fan post section, just kind of hanging out. And the guy at the time was running the show. I was like, hey, you want to come on and be a contributor? I'm like, oh, that's cool. What does that mean? Nothing. Just you're writing anyway. Just do it now. I'm like, okay. So jumped in and, flash forward a few years, eventually up to the point now I'm running the site, and we got the podcast channel, we got the video channel, Second City Gridiron. So we got audio, video, and articles. Everything's covered with us now.
Outstanding growth story. It's really awesome to see how you've progressed in this field. You really do fantastic work. Really appreciate reading your material and the other guys that write for the site. And I honestly have not had a chance to listen to the podcast lately or watch the videos, but it is on my bucket list and I'll get to it real soon. Let me bring in my guy, Jordan T. Silvera. Jordan, what does the T stand for?
Middle name, Tyler. Just had to make it a little creative. I'm not that special.
And Jordan, if you don't know by now, does Bare Necessities here on weekends here at the Barroom and also the Barfly Tailgate Show. Jordan, for people who have not seen Bare Necessities yet, tell us a little bit about what your goal is with that show.
Sure. Although it's exactly as it sounds, Bare Necessities. We are there to break down those exact things, the bare necessities. In season, you're looking at a weekly breakdown of a few pivotal plays from the week before, what I thought made a difference. Sometimes those are obviously the big plays, touchdowns, interceptions. Other times, for example, week 1 in the monsoon, there was a little play action bubble to RPO to Darnell Mooney. Thought you could have found a way to expand the run game a little bit more there. That's an example of a pivotal play. And then breaking down the future opponent with some film of that opponent from their games, as well as ways and tendencies that we've seen that we can explore to hopefully deliver the Bears a victory.
Well, it's an outstanding show, and I know you have a lot of fun and a lot of laughs on the Barfly Tailgate Show, which is on Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. our time here in Chicago, 7 a.m. your time out in California. Is that a drudgery getting up that early?
Oh, it's a blast. It's fun. I like to roll right out of bed with my scraggly voice, and I get Chris Watts over on the pond in England talking about wankers and everything else, and we have a good old time, like we're in a virtual tailgate, if you will. We're grilling, disses here, there, and everywhere to Don Burr and everybody else. So it's a good time.
It is a good time. Have you guys ever interacted with each other before?
Yeah, I think so.
On Twitter a few times, we've gone back and forth, and stuff like that. And this first time we've been in a show together, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, let's have some fun. Let's start with our first question, guys. And here we go. Sunday night's demoralizing defeat to the Packers instigated questions about Justin Fields. He completed a paltry 7 passes on 11 attempts. On one pass play, he missed a wide-open Equanimous St. Brown. And on another play, he released the ball almost a full 2 yards after passing the line of scrimmage. So far this season, the Bears' passing yards through 2 games is rock bottom, 131 yards. They are also last in the league in completions and pass attempts. Is Fields simply a young quarterback fighting through growing pains? Is he a victim of being pressured too often? 56% of his dropbacks have resulted in pressure, the highest in the NFL. Is it Getsy and his play calling? Lester, your thoughts on Justin Fields? Please start us off.
I think to answer those questions, it's yes, yes, and a yes. A little bit of everything right now. It's we're looking at a guy who's 12 starts into his NFL career. He's in a brand new offense that's 2 weeks old. There's going to be growing pains. I mean, right now he's trying to get himself to a point where he has a comfort level with everyone on his team. And, let's face it, I mean, they didn't do a lot to bolster his receiving core around him. Darnell Mooney still is number 1. And, through 2 weeks, he hasn't looked the best. Cole Kmet probably going to be his number 2. Through 2 weeks, not looked the best. Pringle hasn't gotten involved. There's some question marks on the O-line, too. So it's growing pains at this point. It's a little too early to panic. If we're having the same exact discussion in about 3 or 4 more weeks, then yeah, I think at that point, I think it's something we should have an issue with. But right now, 2 weeks into the Getsy scheme, let Getsy learn his job, let Field learn his job, let the offense as a whole grow and get better together, because that's what this season's about.
I love the term better together. Let's see if Jordan uses the same thing in his 60 seconds. Take it away, Jordan.
Sure. I mean, to me, when you consider the struggles that Justin Fields has dealt with early on, I think context is really the word that we should pay attention to. We have to consider that game 1 was in a monsoon where he himself admitted that he had to take an extra second on every throw to consider how much grip he had. We saw simple screen routes to Kmet fall straight to the ground. It wasn't pretty. So in some ways, it's fair to scrap that game away. When you consider the other factors, I'll certainly be the first to say I haven't been totally impressed with Luke Getsy's play calling. I think it lacks rhythm. I think that you could expand this run game beyond just the wide zone scheme that you're seeing. I understand they run an occasional counter out of shotgun, things of that sort, but I'm looking for a little bit more of a way to expand the offense. And then, of course, the last thing with my 15 seconds here is to understand that seasons take time. You have to let that offensive line gel. You have to let Justin work with these new receivers. They tore him down and are building him back up with footwork. That's going to take more than 2 weeks, AKA don't panic.
Don't panic. RELAX. Some quarterback up north once said that. I think that's the theme here. What's interesting is Luke Getsy met with the media today, and when asked these questions about Justin Fields, he pointed out to an array of things. One of them is that some of the misconnects aren't necessarily Justin Fields' fault. Listen to Getsy talk about the miss to Darnell Mooney. I think it was in the third quarter.
Mooney didn't have great detail with the route. Where the landmark where you're trying to hit that thing was way off from where he was. Justin could have helped him by throwing him over to that point. So that part of it, the two of them, just not executing that necessarily at the highest level right there. But something that, we took it, we learned from it, we studied it a bunch this week and make sure everyone's on the same page, not just Mooney, but for whoever else might be in that situation the next time.
Lester, we've heard this story before with Mitchell Trubisky when Matt Nagy used to blame receivers for not being in their spot or for not making the right route decision and so forth. But do you think that Getsy here has some credibility when he points out this misfire between Fields and Mooney?
I think at this point he does. I mean, if this is the same story, like I said, in week 8, week 9, week 10, if we're hearing the exact same story, then maybe you're making excuses. But he did make sure to say that Justin Fields could have thrown him open. So he didn't put it all on Mooney. He put a little bit on his guy too. And again, we're talking about a scheme that's fairly new for these players. They're trying to get their feet under them right now. And I keep going back to growing pains, but it's tough, man. I mean, this season is going to be a rough one for Bears fans because it's if they get 6-7 wins, if that's their max, but we're seeing growth. that's all we can really expect as fans. We want them in the playoffs, but come on, at this point, the way the things look, it may not be right there yet.
Jordan, your thoughts?
I think, again, this is one of those things where a little bit of truth at all angles. I mean, we heard Justin Fields talk about the fact that, he was actually blaming Darnell Mooney a little bit more on the route, thought that he should have cut it a different way. There's probably some truth to that. I also think, let's be fair, let's put some blame on Justin Fields. It's your job when you have one-on-one on your number one receiver, give your guy a chance to make a play. In some ways, yes, I'm going to give him his flowers and say, I don't want you to make a stupid throw where you're giving up an interception. But I also expect you to give Darnell Mooney a chance. We'd all love Justin Fields to have a ball winner. I think I've kind of been the leader of that fan club, somebody that'll go up and get him a bucket, attack the catch point. But right now, that's not what you have. You have Darnell Mooney who can try his best. The last part I'd like to bring up about that, though, because I understand it's always about the Bears, but understand that the Packers get paid too. That's no scrub at corner. That's Eric Stokes, first-round pick. The reason he went so high, that 4.2 to 4.3 speed. If you want to play that clip back, you can see the recovery where Stokes is just riding that low hip and then gets in phase with Darnell Mooney. Quick. So it's a little bit of everything.
There you go. Lester, what did you think about the goal line call out of the shotgun position? Getsy did address that today, but before I play his clip, what did you think about the play call?
Watching it live, I hated it. I thought that, David Montgomery got you down there. He was doing so good at the time. I thought you could have, kept the ball in his hands. And I think he could have got you that because, he's used to those tough yards. He's used to that. But in hindsight, you understand the play call, the quarterback power. It's fairly successful in those situations. I saw the analytics came out and it showed it's actually more successful than going with the tailback in this situation. But like I said, in the heat of the moment, Montgomery was lathered up. He was the guy that got you down there. Let him finish the job.
There you go. All right, let's hear what Getsy had to say about the play.
We love that play. Now we didn't execute it properly. We for whatever reason we kind of saw something. We were seeing a little ghost a little bit up front, so they were able to get penetration where we should have had two linemen on one to stop that penetration, which kind of got Lucas off a little bit instead of cleaning that gap. And then it would have just been Lucas with 59 in the hole, and then Justin, still would have had to run through some contact. But no, we knew that was our plan. We talked about it all week. We went over every front that they present, and we had plenty of time. There was like a stoppage and play for the replay, right? And we knew what was coming, and that was exactly what we wanted. We just didn't execute it well enough, and again, we got to get them coached up a little bit better so that they don't make that mistake.
Jordan, one of your specialties is offensive line play. What'd you think about the offensive line play on that particular play? And also, what'd you think about the call?
I mean, Luke Getsy can sit here and talk about how he loves to play. A little secret, I love the play too. I just have to throw a little bit more blame on Luke Getsy's play there than I think other people want to give consideration to. I don't think it's the best plan to have, and look, I'm all for pulling this. Some of the issues here is, hey, if you're going to continue to run a wide zone, can we at least mix some trap plays and pull some linemen across the formation beyond just stiff blocks from the tight end? So I'm all about pulling your guard there, Lucas Patrick. But on the goal line, when you're a couple inches away, a yard, I don't know if that's your best move to concede some ground by pulling a lineman and then asking him to reinsert and lead up into the hole for Justin Fields. To go with the fact that, look, I love Justin Fields. I've been campaigning that I think they should have more designed QB runs for him. So I love the QB power call in essence, maybe from even 5 yards out. But let's be real here. Justin Fields, as much as we wish he was Cam Newton, Josh Allen, Tim Tebow, this big hulking guy, I think his game is much more speed, beating guys to the edge. Why do you have to sit there and run QB power, run bash, run sweep? If you really want that +1 in the box to have Justin Fields as your runner, pull him to the outside, run a QB sweep. I'm not asking you to pull up footage here, but the reality is there was a very similar play. Geno Smith ran it week 1 against the Denver Broncos in a critical situation, was able to kind of do that QB sweep to get across. I love the play, just don't know if that was the great time to use it.
Factor has a question. He says, is that a good play to run if Patrick has a club in his hand and can't really get his hands on guys? Anyone want to tackle that question?
Yeah, I mean, it's he's in there. I mean, if he's in there, they expect him to do the job. I mean, he can't grab him, can't latch on, but in that situation, you're just looking for contact. You're looking to move the guy to point of attack, and like Getsy said, he wasn't able to get around there, and like you were saying, probably not the best time to pull a guy, and maybe they could have put in Tevin Jenkins at that point, but they're not going to switch on a play-by-play basis. But Tevin Jenkins has shown through 2 weeks to be one of your better run blockers. I think at that point, like Getsy said, he had time. There was a replay before that play. Maybe they could have reset and said, hey, we're going to get Jenkins into the game at guard right now. Excellent. A lot of what ifs with that play, but at the end of the day, it looked like he scored. So,
welcome to Chicago Bears fandom. What if? All right, let's move on to hot topic number 2. Poles' first draft pick for the Bears, Kyler Gordon, did not allow a touchdown in 696 coverage snaps while in college. On Sunday, his second pro game, he allowed his first NFL touchdown. In total, he gave up 10 catches on 13 targets for 162 yards and forced only 1 incompletion. Kind of ugly. But on Monday, NFL Network's Brian Baldinger was complimentary of Gordon's play. Take a look at this short clip from his 2-minute video that he posted on his Twitter account.
But watch Kyler Gordon first quarter. I like a corner that's not afraid to get his hands on the receiver. Redirect Lazard right here. I like that confidence. Flip the hips. Now, play the ball in the air. See it? Play in phase. Here he is. Ball's in the air. Go make a play. That is well done. All right, you watch him in the run game and watch him play off Randall Cobb here in the run game. Like a linebacker. Eyes up, shed the block. Eyes up, shed the block. Now go make the play on Aaron Jones. Like, the guy knows how to play, right?
Gentlemen, tell me where your level of confidence is with Kyler Gordon and whether your preferred player in your mock draft would have been a better option. This time, Jordan, you start us off.
Sure. I guess I'll go ahead and start by just saying that, I mean, look, I love Baldy. I think he's being incredibly generous, being very selective in the shots he's picking. That first play where he's on the boundary, that recovery speed is why you take a guy there at the top of the second round and why he was so cherished. At the same time, I want fans to understand Kyler Gordon is being tasked with almost a lose-lose situation. To come into the NFL and have to play arguably the hardest position on the defense, to be able to have to cover the entire route tree and fit the run at nickel, and then bounce out to the boundary to deal with X receivers, it's a tough task. That being said, I also want to be fair. I wasn't so down on the pick. I would have preferred a guy like Alec Pierce or George Pickens for Justin Fields. But truth be told, those guys were even around at the Brisker pick. The guys that I was hoping for at the time would have been a Roger McCreary or Logan Hall. Those guys were both gone. So I think ultimately, again, it's 2 weeks. Give him some time. If you really want to see Kyler Gordon flash and all he can do, watch the Washington tape. It's all over the field.
I knew you were going to bring up Roger McCreary. That's somebody. You just love that guy, don't you? All right. Let us go now to what happened to my video here? Let's see. There it is. Okay. All yours, Lester.
I mean, like a lot of Bears fans, I was a little surprised with a cornerback taking that spot. Like most Bears fans, I wanted the receiver. I thought there were a few receivers on the board, but they went with the corner, and they did get one of the better corners in college football a year ago, and he's being tasked to play outside corner and nickel. That's tough for any professional football player, let alone a rookie. When I was at camp and I saw them doing that with him, I was a little surprised. But you see the flashes, you see the ability there. The Bears trust this kid to do the job. Like we talk about Justin Fields and most of the young players. There's going to be a lot of growing pains. Those clips from Baldy there showed him on the outside. I think he's more comfortable playing outside. I think when most of his struggles against Packers was when he was in the nickel. But one reason they like him in nickel because he is so physical. He's a physical player. They believe in his coverage skills. But again, we're talking about a young guy learning 2 spots. It'll take him some time.
Indeed. Excellent responses, guys. Let me play a clip from defensive coordinator Alan Williams on Kyler Gordon. He was asked, are you concerned about his cornerbacks, his prize cornerbacks' confidence level?
He is a mentally tough kid. So when you have players, when you have people like that, a play or two, they don't shake you. The other part that we liked about him was he was super smart, and that's he did play nickel and some inside in college, and super smart, super and intelligent, instinctive. So I still feel good about that aspect of it. He'll be fine.
Sorry about the echo, but generally I think you got the gist of it. He's very confident in Kyler Gordon. But let me get back to you, Jordan. You had two cornerbacks, McCreary, and who was the other one that you rated higher than Kyler Gordon?
Kyler Gordon, to me, was actually in that second tier of guys, and that's not so much a slight on him. I don't think that we have to live in some zero-sum game where because I like one, it means Kyler Gordon is an absolute zero. But he was really in a level with Martin Emerson, and Kobe Bryant in that second tier of guys to me. The top five would have been Booth, McCreary, McDuffie, and then, of course, Stingley and Sauce. Those would have been your five. And then Elam I had as a tie for fifth. Those kind of a cheating five, but that's the list.
By the way, Larry T says that you love those short arms cornerbacks.
I mean, let me be very quick, but you want to talk about, you really want a nickel corner that bad, and this is exactly why Tennessee snagged him before the Bears could even get him. Yeah. You don't have to worry about those short arms inside when he can just sit there and jam up dudes, and he was covering the best in the SEC for years.
Lester, how confident are you of this duel moving forward? Do you think that the Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon cornerback duel could be one that the Chicago Bears could flaunt for the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan. I mean, it seems that way with Johnson. Johnson seems like he's on that path right now. I mean, teams, at this point, they're not throwing at him because they realize they can go to Vildor, they can go to the rookie. And look, rookie corners in the NFL, they struggle always. I don't care if you're a top pick, a second round pick, no matter where you pick, you're going to struggle. It's a different game. And like we talked about, man, he's learning two spots. It's just hard. The learning curve for a guy like Kyler Gordon, because they expect so much of him, may take him a while to really settle in there. But I think at some point he'll settle in. It'd be ideal to where he could just play one or the other, but that's not where they are right now with the Bears because of who they have on the roster. That's a Ryan Poles problem right now. So he'll get there, and I think that when he does get there and he settles in, I think he's going to be there for the next, like you said, 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
And Lester, let me stay with you. What is your overall evaluation of the entire defensive backfield as it stands now?
Much better than a year ago. I mean, there's still growing pains with Brisker back there. He had some coverage lapses, but again, we're talking about rookie safeties struggle too. It's going to happen. These guys are learning a new scheme as far as Jackson and Johnson and Vildor. I think that they're a better fit for the new scheme, but they're still growing pains. They still have to figure things out. They still have to trust the guys in front of them. One thing when you're changing to a new scheme, yeah, football's football, but you got to trust the guys around you. And if you're thinking more than you're reacting on defense, that's not a good thing.
And Jordan, you've been a big proponent for drafting safeties relatively high. Tell the audience why you think the safety position is underappreciated by most draftniks, most people who want to build their football teams. Tell me why you think the safety position and the Jaquan Brisker pick was a good one for the Bears.
I just look at the way that the league is legislating football nowadays. We're in a world where essentially every defense wants to play two high safeties. You're starting to see the green dot on the back of the helmets make their way to safeties. Jordan Fuller in Los Angeles, Eric Weddle taking over the controls when Jordan Fuller went down. It's a situation where your safeties are becoming the traffic controllers. They're the ones that are being asked to fight and deal with the conflict that they're being put into with so many backside digs and crossers, asking to somehow play the impossible role of making sure that you're not biting down on that and giving up a big play, but at the same time, you're not allowing this offense to gash you for 15 to 18 yards every time. And of course, the reason I was so high on him is he is one of those rare prospects that can play in space, play deep in the deep half because of his range, but also has a knack to want to play in the box and fit the run with bad intentions. And that's the type of football player that I think we've been missing in Chicago for so long.
Lester, do you have any issue with valuing safeties so high, sort of like Jordan does?
I mean, at the end of the day, you got to pick the best football player for your team. Of course, you shouldn't reach for certain positions, but again, it all depends on how your team construction is. So at the time, I wasn't high on the 2 picks because, I wanted receivers. I wanted weapons for Justin Fields, but when I saw the 2 guys they got, I had a chance to, to watch the film a little bit. I understood the pick. So I had no problem going corner safety that early in the draft.
Yeah. I feel similar to Jordan. This safety position has become so valued in the NFL now, and nickelbacks are so valued. The game has changed dramatically, and it's going to continue to go to we're seeing 60-40 passes in the NFL nowadays. I wouldn't doubt it by the end of this decade it'll be something like 80-20 or so. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, let's move on to hot topic number 3. Roquan Smith had 11 tackles Sunday night, but as Dan Wiederer pointed out, only 3 of Smith's stops came within 4 yards of the line of scrimmage. What's up with Roquan? Is he out of shape? Is he part of a bigger Bears defense problem? Is this easily correctable? What's happening? Help us understand. Lester, you're up.
I don't think he's out of shape. I mean, he's a professional. He understood what he had to do. He had the hold in going on, so he wasn't out there with his teammates. But you have to expect at his point in his career, he's a pro. He knows what he has to do to keep his body in shape. Maybe he has to round a little more into football shape, but missing time in camp, it's not being in shape that hurt him. It's not being able to play with your teammates. This is his first year playing as the weak side linebacker in this scheme. He's used to the 3-4 defense from the first few years in the NFL with Fangio and with Desai. So he's learning a brand new scheme. It's a different look. He's got new teammates around him. And I talked about in the last segment, if you don't trust the guy next to you, if you're thinking of what you have to do as a defender, if you don't trust the play call, you're still trying to figure out what you're supposed to do and what your role is in that, it makes you play slower. So I think we're seeing that right now because he's not attacking the ball. And we've seen him in the past attack it. So he's got to get to where he just understands the whole defense and he can play faster.
There you go. All right. Jordan, why don't you take over?
I'm going to actually agree with everything that Lester said, but I just think I need to tackle the other 2 issues with it, which is, to me, and I want to be very clear, the mentality of a player can change. He can all of a sudden find a new fire inside of him that can change it. But right now, I have a physicality and mentality problem with Roquan Smith. I don't necessarily know if he's fat or if he's out of shape, but I have a problem with the fact that, and this is not new. This goes back to his time in Chicago before this, as well as Georgia. He's used to having to play with 3-4 defenses where you have space eaters up front. And now you're in a situation where you're in a 4-3, your defensive linemen are playing to one gap. You cannot afford to backdoor every block and be afraid of contact. And I'm going to call a spade a spade. I have questions about if a zebra can change its stripes when I'm watching Alan Lazard not even block him, just simply present himself as a problem and get in the way. And he all of a sudden still wants to backdoor the block as opposed to splitting what should have been an easy guy. He's fast, right? Split 2 pulling linemen. This is a mentality issue.
Certainly is. And so that brings up the question, can he change his mentality and be a much more aggressive linebacker? And is he worth being paid the kind of money that he wants to be paid? Lester, I'll start with you.
I think that's why they didn't pay him. They want to wait and see how he reacts. They want to see what he does, when he doesn't have those big guys up front, doing a bunch of stuff with 2 gaps. He has a different responsibility now. And while as fans and analysts, we look and say, man, he's got the speed for the will. He should be a great fit for the will. Everything should be great for him. You still got to do it on the field. And he has not looked like he fits yet. I think at some point he'll get a little more comfortable, but like you guys are saying, the physicality part of it, he has to understand how to take on those blocks a little better because, they're not eating it up in front. He's going to take more one-on-ones than he has in the past. And that might be why they didn't want to pay him as much as he was asking for.
You agree with that, Jordan?
Yeah, to the main question of do I think it can be fixed? I mean, I sure hope, but I got to tell you, if I'm a betting man, I would stay clear of that bet. If you had to put a figurative gun to my head, I would say he doesn't get it fixed. This is a problem where this is not new. It's not just this year. He has never wanted to stack and shed blocks. He is kind of a sawn-off shotgun as far as his build. He's not long, doesn't have incredible measurements. He's coming in at 6 foot. I'm watching power slots and Alan Lazard and tight ends give him trouble. All of a sudden, he's going to change his stripes and start fighting these blocks from these linemen. It's just never going to happen. And traditionally, he's been okay using that mobility and his shorter, diminutive stature to kind of slink in behind these big monsters of Eddie Goldman and Akeem Hicks. You don't have those anymore. That's not the defense we're going to be playing. Eberflus is never going to say, let's take off the athletic interior defensive lineman and put big space eaters there for Roquan. Because of that, how can I possibly sit there and tell you it's going to be fixed? I was never an advocate for paying him because I just don't know if he's that guy.
What do you think about what Jordan just said there, Lester?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, that has to be a big reason. I mean, that has to be the first thing Poles thinks of is, I mean, obviously if you're paying him, you're going to pay him for, 4 or 5 year deal. If he's not the long-term fit, I saw Kreutz had a tweet earlier saying maybe it's time to put him at the middle. Maybe that could help his career out a little bit. I'm not sure if that's even going to help him because it's still the same basic stuff you're going to have to do there. It's just it's speed. He has to beat those blocks, and if that's an issue he's going to have, you may just see the Bears decide to let him play it out this year, offer him a deal because he's still a pretty good football player. He's just not going to be at the same level that he was in the previous defense. They may offer him a deal, and it's a take it or leave it, and then he may see him go play somewhere where he knows the scheme better, he knows the fit better. He may go to LA and be with the Chargers.
Let's listen to what Coach Williams said about Roquan today.
I still like what he's doing. He leads our defense or helps to lead our defense because we have a lot of leaders out there. When he hits you, he hits you hard. He hits you tough. He processes quick, so a quick processor. So that means that when things are about to happen, he sees it in advance. And I just expect Roquan to continue to get better and better and better. But I expect everyone on the defense to do that, not just Roquan.
Do you expect to have him Sunday?
I expect to have all our guys. As far as I know, yes.
Well, if you listen to Coach Williams there, he sees no problems at all with Roquan, although he did go on and say he expects him to play better as the season wore on, but doesn't seem like he's got any issue. I wanted to ask you guys, who was it here that had a comment about Roquan? Something about Jack Sanborn and Weathersley. Do you think that Weatherford, Renewable asked the question, Rowe better hope Sanborn or Weatherford don't look better than him. Do you guys think that there's any chance at all that these two young guys could overtake Roquan Smith's position? I didn't think so. No answer necessary unless you want to expound.
I mean, at this point, you got undrafted free agent type players, and I like the upside in both. I think they both have an upside. They both have obviously a career ahead of them. Right now they probably project more to special team guys, but we've seen it happen in the past. There's a chance for them to get in the field, and they're not going to beat out Roquan, but you may see one of them push for some time at the Sam. And if there's an injury, they'll get a chance. But I mean, that's Roquan's gig. He ain't losing it to one of these guys.
There you go.
Yeah, I would quickly say I think of the same thing. Like, look, Roquan, just because we're harsh on him doesn't mean he's still not a good football player. But I will say one thing about those guys, and this is just a bigger thing. We're talking about the value of safeties. This is half the issue with the Roquan Smith pick years later. I don't fault the pick when your window's open, you're trying to push it all forward to win the Super Bowl. But when you look at the first-round linebackers that are taken, and just where linebackers are going in general, we're looking for these taller statures. Your Jamin Davises that are 6'4", Baron Browning, Quay Walker, another 6'4" guy. Shaq Leonard's even a bit bigger. I'm not telling you he's the biggest guy, but there's not many backers that are 6 foot making plays. Matt Milano is probably about the only guy I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay. All right, guys. Before we get off the topic of linebacker, I just wanted to get your evaluation each on Nicholas Morrow and his play after 2 regular season games. I'll start with you, Jordan.
I don't think Morrow's been playing awesome, but to me, I don't mean to sound like such a meathead, but linebacker play is about fitting the run. And I'm not even telling you that Morrow's done such a great job at it, but at least what I've seen is a willingness to take on contact and to try to fight through blocks. And this goes a little bit to what Lester was saying. I don't want to steal his thunder here, but you can talk about putting either linebacker anywhere you want, but the reality is they were running it at Roquan as a weak side linebacker. They're just running it to the weak side. You want to make them a Mike linebacker? Great. They'll run it to the play side. There's no getting out of this problem. This is the whole point. Like, Roquan, I just need you to buck up and fit the run. That's what it is. That's what it's going to take.
Lester, your thoughts on Nicholas?
Yeah, I think he's playing okay. I mean, he's, nothing, extravagant, nothing really, extra that he's been showing out there, but he shows that he's a solid football player. And, part of it is we talk about the scheme. He's been in the scheme before. He played with it last year. I know he was hurt in Vegas, but, he was still there. He was still engaged, and prior to that, he was in a similar scheme. So he knows this front. He knows his responsibilities better, which is probably one reason why he's wearing the green dot, because, he understands the calls more too. So he's more comfortable. He's got the speed. He's a little bigger than Roquan. And like Jordan said, he's more willing to take on those blocks and make the physical play. We just haven't seen that yet from Roquan.
Got a question from Zach, and he's saying that Matthew Adams has struggled too. You guys, anyone disagree with that, or want to expound on what Zach has seen?
I mean, I'd love to. This is a bigger issue, which is of just you want to put the Green Bay game in a microcosm. But a little bit back to the Kyler Gordon issue. Asking him, look, he's a physical player. He wants to fit the run. But that's a losing business model to have your nickel cornerback, you're playing that nickel defense, to fit up against Mercedes Lewis and these tight ends and big A.J. Dillon coming across on a split back pony package to block up a guy like Kyler Gordon. Well, why am I bringing this up when we're talking about Matt Adams? Because they tried to play base defense against those 12 and 22 personnel looks, and Matt Adams got cooked. So they decided, okay, well, we need a little more speed. I guess we'll go nickel. So yes, to that commenter's point, I don't think Matt Adams has looked particularly good either. That's a situation where you want to try a Weatherford or a Sanborn, go for it.
I mean, this is who Matt Adams is. He was a backup with the Colts. He's a special teams guy. I think the only games he started was, 4 years ago with Indy. He's always been a reserve. Yeah, he knows the defense. He knows the scheme. That's why he's here. I think ideally the Bears would have rather have seen someone else win that job. But, this is who the Bears brought in. This is what they got. He's their Sam. He'll play about 30% of the snaps because of their nickel so much. So this is who he is. I mean, he's going to be this guy the whole season. He's not Hunter Hillenmeyer. I mean, I know a lot of Bears fans look at the Sam over there. He's not that kind of player. He's a little lesser than that. Which, and even with Hunter wasn't an All Pro, but this is who Matt Adams is. So get used to it.
Yeah, you reap what you sow. That's really the story of this team.
Let's get one of our questions from the chat here before we get to our last topic. Renewable is asking about Alex Leatherwood. Do you think he's going to play right tackle or the left side? And also, he thinks that Carter might be pushing Whitehair, at least for next season, with Whitehair's contract being what it is. Let's just start with you. What do you think about Alex Leatherwood? First of all, what do you think about the acquisition? And do you think he's a worthy prospect? Because really that's what he is. He's a prospect at this point to invest the kind of money that they had to in order to pick him up on waivers.
Yeah, I thought it was a great pickup. I mean, he's relatively cheap. I mean, obviously he's still making first round money, but a lot of that junk was paid already for him. So this is basically a lottery ticket. Let's bring him in, see if he can develop in our system with our scheme with our coaches, because it wasn't working with the Raiders. I mean that they had some issues there, but they talked about him at right tackle. I'm not sure if from what I saw, I'm not sure if that was the best place for him. His Alabama tape seemed like he was much more comfortable on the left side, whether it be left tackle, maybe even left guard. But so far it's right tackle. But right now he has mono, so he's not even in the building for another few weeks. Then as far as Carter, I think at some point, yeah, I don't think Whitehair is going to be on the team much after this year, because the way his contract works out, he's 31, 32 years old. A big chunk of change next year they're going to have to pay him. If they get rid of him, they'll save a ton. And then I think they would like Carter to win that job, but at this point, it's asking a lot of a guy that played at a small school. as a young player to kind of take over that role. But ideally, you'd want one of those draft picks you got this year to win that job.
Jordan?
Yeah, I guess let's start with Carter. I hate to make it sound like it's always about politics, but I have a hard time believing your end of the draft rookie all of a sudden pushes captain Cody Whitehair out. Cody Whitehair's not been impressive, but he also he's the perfect example of a guy that I call set and forget. He's not getting your quarterback killed, but he's not wowing you. He's a steady Eddie player at this point. Sure, the season's in the tank and you want to see what you got in the young guys, throw the kids out there and let them play, but I don't see that happening now. As far as the Leatherwood acquisition, I don't know if there was a bigger supporter than me. I was practically begging Ryan Poles when he hit waivers, just because I'm a believer that you don't typically see good offensive line talent hit the market. And for you to take a $4 million swing at a guy that was generally regarded as a top 50 to 60 talent in that draft, and then you consider the context of what he was dealing with in Las Vegas, with that coaching staff throwing him out there at right tackle, a position he's never played. You think it's just Leatherwood? Go ahead and ask Penei Sewell how he handled it in Detroit, playing right tackle for a bit. It takes time to learn. You ask all the offensive line gurus, they'll tell you it's like wiping your butt with your other hand. So you're putting him to right tackle, doesn't work out. All of a sudden you have some injuries, so you need to slot him into right guard. You're not even giving the kid a chance to establish himself. You want him to start learning new positions. Meanwhile, you're tearing down his confidence. So as far as I'm concerned, taking a $4 million swing on that level of talent, if you really believe in Chris Morgan, your offensive line coach, and you have a clear plan, which everything we've seen from this coaching staff seems like they have a plan. If you have a clear plan for him, take it slow and groom him to be the guy that comes in. I would presume, at least I would imagine he fits in on that left side. Sounds like you have it where you want with Jenkins, and then potentially you figure out your right tackle, whether that's a Conklin in free agency or some other guy, maybe a Skoronski that you draft.
Interesting. Lester, what do you think about Larry Barroom at right tackle? Do you think he's got a future there?
I mean, he's got a future there because he's still relatively cheap. He's on his rookie deal. I would like to see Riley Reif maybe get a chance there in practice, see what happens. I'm not sure because Barroom has not been impressive for the first two games. I thought Barroom was competing for the swing tackle job. I would be more comfortable if he was a backup, but I mean, if he's beating out Reif in practice, if he's the guy that they want to put in there, they're going to have to live with it. You just got to hope that Braxton Jones can keep improving, which he did from week 1 to week 2. I thought Jones played much better in his second game. So if at least Jones can show you enough, if you only got to help and chip out on Barroom's side, I think you'll get by. But I'm not overly impressed with Barroom's game thus far.
And if I could just piggyback off of what Lester's saying, I mean, really, when you consider the offensive line breakdown, and I have to be fair to admit, I wasn't even totally considering that in my original response. They clearly have invested in Braxton Jones, and they're desperate to see this one work out. So as far as Leatherwood, probably not taking left tackle. Cody Whitehair, we just talked about, is probably one of those guys that can maybe be swapped out. So maybe Leatherwood's a left guard. Sounds like they want Patrick and Mustapher, and they're happy with that at center. I don't really think Leatherwood's a center. Then you talk about right guard, Tevin Jenkins, anybody that turns on the tape, he's been moving people like no other. So really it comes down to exactly what Lester's talking about. Barroom, I think, did a good job acquitting himself as a rookie in a dysfunctional system. But admittedly, right now, and again, we always have to consider that first game was in a monsoon. I don't even know how well you're getting traction on the field. But at least in game 2, he was pitiful. But I also want to be fair and understand that Green Bay has a top 3 to 5 defensive front in the league. This is, again, 2 games. Let's see it play out.
Jimmy Mack asked the question, is Barroom too big, or is it a strength issue with him being pushed around there? What do you guys think?
I think part of what Jordan said is just the Packers have a really good front. I mean, with Gary, Gary bull rushed him quite a bit. He's just when he was drafted, I know he was a first-round pick. A lot of people thought he was reached for, but he's come into his own. He's turned himself into a really good edge defender. He's got a good first step quickness, and he's got the power to go along with it. He uses leverage really, really well too. So I think Barroom was just a little overmatched. But like you're kind of saying, 2 games in, one was a monsoon, one was against a really good front seven. Let's see how he looks against the Texans and then the Giants, and going forward from there. So I think Barroom will be fine. They'll settle in. I just would like to see a more talented player at that spot. man, but if Barroom wins the job at that draft status he was there, if he can show that he deserves it, that's good for this front.
Yeah, I'll quickly just add to that too. The question was, is Barroom too big or is it a strength issue? I think the issue with Barroom has always been he doesn't get displacement. He's not a people mover. Has never shown that in the run game. What his strengths have been is he is quick and sleight of foot. He moves and gets around for a big frame pretty well. But in that, you need to be able to anchor. And I do have some questions about, look, they wanted him to get athletic and slim down a bit. Well, how much of that does affect his ability to anchor down, to set anchor and stop these bull rushes from happening? Sure, he's quick, but the moment, and this is not just even him, it's Braxton, anybody, the moment that those defensive linemen get into your chest pads and they're driving them up to your neck, it's game over. And that's what's happened to Barroom.
Excellent stuff, gentlemen. Let's get on to our fourth and final topic. It's clear that this season is going to have ups and downs. The popular 538.com website has the Bears with the worst division percentage of making the playoffs. I'd like each of you to preach to fans what their expectations should be. Should they temper their expectations because this is a rebuilding team? Should they expect nothing but victory every week? Or what? Jordan, the pulpit is yours.
Sure, I'll go ahead and just start by saying I really think that fans should just take and try to savor this season for what it is. We only have 17 of these outings. They're not all going to be perfect. But really, let's hold it to a standard of, in this game, the way it's legislated nowadays, quarterback's the most important position. So let's see if we can get some real tangible growth from Justin Fields. Scouting those young guys, people that may be here beyond this year, seeing if Tevin Jenkins really locks down that right guard spot. There's certain things to glean. As far as actual matchups, with my 30 seconds here, the way I would discuss this is that you want to see the Bears beat the crap out of lesser or equal teams. But you should certainly understand where the Bears sit in the totem pole, and when they're facing these perennial contenders, Green Bay, Buffalo, the Eagles with their roster now, understand where the Bears are at. And I think that'd be my final point in these 10 seconds here. Understand where the Chicago Bears are at in their trajectory of their team building versus the teams that they're going against to judge whether they should win or lose.
Good stuff. All right, Lester, let's hear your thoughts on the issue.
Yeah, you got to look at that website, and it's fair. I mean, it's fair. They have the Packers, Vikings, and I know Bears fans hate to hear it, but the Lions are probably gonna finish third. I mean, it's that team's in their year 2 of their rebuild. The Bears are in year 1, so the Lions are a little bit further ahead. You know, they kind of have that mentality of their coach. You know, so they're going to win those ball games against teams that are about the same level of them. And like Jordan said, that's what you want the Bears to get to. You want the Bears to get to that point. You know, I've been saying all offseason, this year is all about building for the future. It's all about seeing who is going to fit, who are your building blocks this season. And there's no more important building block to know what you got, and that's Justin Fields. He's got to show enough this year that the franchise understands, yeah, this is going to be our guy moving forward. And I think at this point, everyone in that room wants him to be the guy, but you still got to show it on the field. And right now, it's like 12 starts in, a couple games in a brand new offense. He's struggling, but, you know, the future's bright for him.
Certainly is. Good stuff, gentlemen. So no playoffs this year, right?
No, I don't think
that's what I'm hearing. Let's take a look at the schedule here, and they do have, the Texans and Giants over the next 2 weeks. That's a pretty, and then the Commanders in week 6. I'm not expecting them to beat the Vikings, especially on the road, but I do feel that their chances of winning 3 of the next 4 games are pretty good. What say you guys?
Yeah, you look at the schedule, you figure, they're favored against the Texans. It's going to probably be a pick 'em against the Giants. If not, they're going to be the Giants will be favored at home a little bit. The Vikings are fine, but I mean, look, that's Kirk Cousins. Who knows if the good Kirk Cousins show up that day or not? And then the Commanders, come on, Carson Wentz, are you serious? Then and then with the Patriots, who knows who they are? I mean, they're breaking in their own brand new quarterback. So. Then you go.
Unfortunately, it's a nationally televised game, Lester.
Televised game, and then you go ahead to the Cowboys, and if Dak's not back and it's still the backup, and it's like, I mean, there's a chance for the Bears to make a little hay here and inflate those expectations from fans. But let's keep it real. This is still a team in a rebuild. They may get lucky. They may catch some breaks here, and they may end up winning a couple more games than we thought. But this season is all about the future. When they have a whole bunch of money in cap space in next year, they'll have all their draft picks next year. They'll know who's their core after this season. That's what this year's all about.
That's kind of the scary thing to me, Jordan, because you look at players like Larry Barroom, Cole Kmet, Tevin Jenkins, and even Justin Fields. Those guys have to prove that they are a part of that core. I mean, if Justin Fields flounders the rest of the season and carries with him, instead of the number 1, a question mark on his jersey, then this rebuild, it's not a one-year rebuild. I don't care how much money and how much draft capital they have next season. You're looking at another year beyond next season. You're looking at 2024 with a new quarterback and a new tight end and an offensive line that looks different. This could get ugly. What do you think, Jordan?
Well, I think to me, and this is kind of the whole point that Lester's talking about, if for nothing else, can you grab tangible proof that theoretically you're starting to put together that cake, the batter's getting it together, you're starting to get ready to put it in the oven. Are you seeing the young players step up? Justin Fields, you want to talk about him? I get it. He's the talk of the town. To me, there needs to be a clear, decisive look that guy is lifting your team to victories. The perfect example, yes, it was in a monsoon. We can even go back to last year, and I know they didn't win the game. But when they were playing the 49ers last year and even this year, Justin Fields had moments where he looked like the best player on the field. And that, to me, is what I think you need to be looking for. And you need to have a clear understanding that is who we have or it is not. And these games like the Texans and the Giants and the Patriots, where the way they're floundering, these are your opportunities for him to kind of stamp it and say, look, sure, we have a rough team. I am throwing to Equinemius St. Brown and Byron Pringle. But at moments, I was able to skirt around the edge for a 45-yard run. I dropped it in the bucket on a goal line fade. Things of that nature to really lift above. And I think we all need to have those fair standards. We in Chicago are so kind of hell-bent to well, look, just mediocrity is okay. No. In this game, the way the league is mandated now, the way the game is legislated, you have to have elite talent at the quarterback position. And we should not mince words. When you trade 2 first-round picks and a 4th-rounder for a guy that was regarded as highly as Justin Fields was, it's time for him to start turning games in your favor, manageable games. Not against the Bills, not against the Packers, not in monsoons, but against these middling teams.
Very good. Given the work that you guys do, I imagine that you've had some time to look at the Texans, and Zach Sullivan is asking the question. The Texans have held opponents to meager offensive outputs. So he's asking the question, how do the Bears match up with the Texans? Lester, you're first.
Well, it's a different style of defense they're going to face than they saw the first 2 weeks, and it's a defense that Justin Fields should be a little familiar with. I mean, it's Lovie Smith. It's a Tampa 2-esque style defense. Lovie's the play caller there on defense, so it should be something they're used to. They should have a good scouting hand in what they want to do there, and plus the talent level from the Packers and the Texans, that's night and day. I mean, the Texans are not a very talented football team. I'm rooting for Lovie. I've always liked Lovie Smith. I think he's a good football coach, but his last few go-rounds wasn't the best. So, I'm not saying the game has passed them by, but we'll kind of see how the team responds around him. But they have a few good players on offense. Pierce is a good running back. The quarterback. As much as Bears fans want to look at him and say, "Oh, he's not this, he's not that," He's had some pretty good stuff on film as a rookie. He looked okay this year. That's Lovie though. Lovie's teams are always going to compete. They're going to be tough. They're going to be hard. Much like that happened in Chicago with Coach Flus. Similar stuff. It's like looking to a mirror. And I do think the Bears should win this game. And I think it's a good chance for Justin Fields to really show what he has. And like Jordan said, put his stamp on a couple games here. And this is a good time to start.
Jordan,
I would echo what Lester said. And again, I want to be very clear. I get it. A game is a game. We're only 3 weeks in. But if you really want a game where, again, I really can't begin to harp on this enough, understand where the Bears are at in their trajectory to chasing a championship. I mean this. The Texans and the Bears are about as equal in that position of that poll to getting to a Super Bowl as you can get. I understand that, I get it. They've had a couple more first-round picks recently, things of that sort. But the Texans are somewhat of a barren roster, just like the Bears. And this really is a time, I've said it earlier, but Justin Fields really should take over this game. As far as scouting the Texans, I've done a little bit of it. I'm not impressed. I was a big Pep Hamilton fan. I think that he's rolling out a lot of 22 personnel, loves these 3-by-1 nub looks where you kind of have that tight end inside in line on he is the solo receiver on that side. You'll have 3 on the other. And I haven't been impressed with Davis Mills' accuracy, but there's so many weird parallels between that team and what we have. Dameon Pierce, to me, I'm not kidding, looks like a budget version of David Montgomery. And that's not a slight. It's just one of those things where his contact balance, his ability to fight for extra yards, they've got a people mover in Kenyon Green, the way that Tevin Jenkins is moving people. Their defense, they've got a safety, much like Jaquan Brisker, but theirs is Jalen Petrie, who likes to play in the box, likes to play that star position, and that nickel comes from a very savvy guy coming from Dave Aranda's defense at Baylor. So I think that, I know this isn't what Bears fans want to hear, but if you really want to dominate this team, run the ball on them. It's not that, and I want Justin to take his shots, but that should come from the play action. The reason I say don't just throw that all over the field is Derek Stingley has shown some real promise early, and they do have Steven Nelson on the other side, and they're working with Jalen Petrie. The one weak part is Chris Owens there is the strong safety. But outside of that, that secondary is better than their front 7. Run the ball, pound them, force that safety to come up so that you can ultimately take advantage of that thing we talked about earlier, driving posts across the field, crossers, digs, to where Justin Fields can really beat them up with his arm that way.
Excellent stuff. Let's kind of bookend our show here by finishing up with Justin Fields. And Lester, I'll ask you, what are your expectations for this next game against the Texans? What do you think Justin Fields can accomplish against this Lovie Smith defense?
I think we'll see a little bit more of the kind of stuff we saw in preseason and in training camp. I think we'll see a little more of the bootleg stuff. They talked about all offseason now. They want to be a run-first team, and I think that's who they are. That's their identity. They want to pound you. They want to do that. They want to go with the play action. We didn't see a lot of that in the first 2 weeks, and that could have something to do with because those teams are familiar with that style. That's their offense as well. So, we may see more of it here against the Texans. I think they will open it up a little bit more just because, the Texans defense is not as good as the Niners or the Packers. But I do think they're going to commit to the run. They're going to do that. A lot of play action, a lot more bootlegs, get them out on the edge, and I think it should be his, I know it's not saying much, but I think it's going to be his best game of the season so far.
Jordan?
Yeah, to me, and I promise this is not for hype or hyperbole, but and I'm not trying to be harsh to Justin Fields, but if we've seen anything throughout those 12 starts, it's been very inconsistent. And the good news about that is he's coming off of a bad game. He somehow usually finds a way to just go up, and then you can bet on the next one being down and the next one being up. He's due for a big game. Maybe I'm just wistfully hoping that he all of a sudden blows all of our minds, but I genuinely believe that this is a game that he comes out and really, as I said earlier, stamp and proclaim his greatness. He's got a lot of work to do, but I do think that there's going to be plenty of opportunities for him to really show that he's the best player on the field. The Texans, like I said, they're not a super talented team. I think that the Bears can really rise to the occasion and overwhelm them.
There is a question in the chat regarding Justin Fields and having him run more. Are you guys for that, for more planned running plays with Justin Fields?
To me, it's funny because I know that everybody gets so skittish about we don't want the Trey Lance situation, don't want Fields to get hurt. I think that you draft that guy with those abilities to use them. I've been begging and pleading that they institute more quarterback-designed runs. And look, I'm not asking for you to run power all the time and push them into piles, but get them out there beyond just zone reads. Get them on some sweeps, get them on some power, get them on bash. Pull. Look, this is if you really want like the best play I could ask, pull your guard and tackle, run a GT counter with him running behind those two big guys, and see if he can't find an alley to break off for 20 yards. I'm not saying it needs to be 14, 15 times a game, But right now, I don't even know what we're averaging. It feels like certainly less than 5. Give him 6, 7, 8 plays a game with that in mind.
See, I'm more the other side. I don't want to see him running very often. It's not because of fear, just because that wasn't his game at Ohio State. He's not really he's not Josh Allen. I mean, he's not Lamar Jackson. He's not that type of player. I want to see him run a little more than he has. I want to see him on a few designed runs, but I want to see him on the edge. I want to see him getting rolling out where it's more of an option, where he has the chance to take off and go. Because I think his best running is when he's scrambling. But again, that comes with time in the offense, understanding what's going on around him, knowing when to take off. We saw as a rookie, he held the ball a little too much. There was a lot of times we were kind of screaming at our TVs like, just run it because, it's not there for you. So I think as he gains comfort as a professional, we'll see that. But I'm not totally against more design runs, but I just don't think that's his game. I think he wants to be in the pocket. He wants to win games with his arm. He wants to get yards with his legs when he can. And I think it's the best of both worlds if you kind of scale that back a little bit and kind of let him be an athlete out there as well as a quarterback.
All right. Any final thoughts on this topic before we pull the plug on this edition of the Bear Debate?
No, I mean, other than which I'm sure we're going to get to, but I've really, truly enjoyed my time kind of talking back and forth about the Bears here with Lester. You've been excellent, Lester and Aldo. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Lester, tell us what you're working on and where people can catch your work who may not be familiar with your podcast or your writing over at Windy City Gridiron.
WindyCityGridiron.com. Our podcast channel has about six shows now. Our video channel, Second City Gridiron, we're about the same. A lot of X's and O's stuff. A lot of our podcast stuff goes there as well. So there's always something. Every day there's something new on the site. Everything we do with the pod or with the videos on the site as well. So just the site's where it's all at, and it'll take you where you got to go.
And that's where you can find Greg Gabriel's writing as well.
Greg Gabriel's there with it too. Yeah, it's your guy. Yeah, Greg has been awesome. He is so opinionated. We love having Greg at the site. He has added a nice dimension to what we have there.
Yeah, you went after a Twitter guy this week. I was like, oh, wow. Greg is fired up. I can see the steam coming out of his ears as he's pounding those keyboards. Jordan, let people know where they can follow you on social media and what you got coming up this weekend on the Barroom Network.
Sure thing. You can find me at Jordan T. Silvera on Twitter. I'm also doing Bear Necessities every Saturday morning here on the Barroom Network, as well as Sunday mornings, 7 a.m. Pacific time, early time for me. But doing the Tailgate Show with Aaron Current, Chris Watts, and Ryan Kirkland-Billings. And then in addition to that, after every game, immediately at the conclusion of it, I post my top 10 takeaways, long threads just about as I'm literally typing these live. So yes, you may occasionally get a take one where Justin Fields missed a pass and he looks awful. And then all of a sudden he goes off at, quarter 3 and 4, but you're getting those live takeaways as the game's going on. And you can find that at the conclusion of every Bears game. Thank you.
It's great stuff. And Greg and I are scheduled to have a show tomorrow morning. So we don't know what time yet because he's got a couple of obligations to take care of first. But we'll let you know on our social media channels at Barroom Network on Twitter and on Facebook, just Barroom Network. Guys, you have been absolutely outstanding. I'd love to have you back again later in the season. And I'll tell everyone who's joined us live in the chat room, thank you very much for your interaction. And for those of you who are going to watch or listen on demand, thank you too. All right, everybody, we'll see you soon.